right, everybody, welcome back for another deep dive.
Yeah, it's exciting to be back.
So today we're going to be talking about different models for centers of excellence.
For automation, that's right.
For automation. And I think a lot of people, they hear center of excellence and they're like, what is that?
Right.
And so we're going to kind of break down like what exactly that is today and talk about the benefits of them.
And not just what it is, but how to actually structure one, because that's really the big question everyone's asking. Which model is right for me?
Why?
Yeah.
So we are basing this discussion on a really great article called Understanding Automation COE Models. Centralized, federated, and decentralized.
By Apinav's Saparwal.
Yeah, he's an RPA business process consultant.
Which basically means that he helps companies figure out... implement these software robots.
Yeah, and he wrote this in November of 2024.
Okay, so let's maybe take a step back before we jump into the models.
Yeah.
What is a center of excellence in the context of automation?
Yeah, so I think like a really simple way to think about it is it's a team or like a structure within a company that's dedicated to making sure that automation initiatives are successful.
It's almost like that central brain that's driving and governing.
It's the strategic planning behind it.
Exactly. And it's becoming so important because we're seeing this huge wave of companies adopting automation.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and it's across every industry now.
Every industry, yeah.
Like legal finance, healthcare manufacturing, like you name it. Everyone's trying to figure out how to automate.
Absolutely.
And so this is where the COE comes in.
Yeah, and I think for our listeners, it's important to understand this, whether you're, in a big company or a small company.
Yeah, or if you're just interested in how businesses work.
Exactly. This is going to give you a peek behind the curtain.
Yeah. So let's jump into the first model here.
Okay.
Which is centralized.
So imagine you're a company just starting out with automation.
Okay.
You're dipping your toes in the water.
Like, let's say a bank that is just starting to automate their loan processing.
Perfect example, right?
Yeah.
A lot of manual tasks.
Yep.
A lot of paperwork.
Lots of potential for errors.
Exactly. So in those early stages, the centralized model works really well. Think of it like a control tower at an airport.
Okay.
You have that single point of oversight.
Everything goes through them.
Everything goes through them, exactly. So you can establish really strong governance from the get-go.
So like security protocols.
Security protocols, standardized practices.
Making sure that like everything is consistent.
Yeah, everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet.
Especially in a bank that's like super important.
Oh, absolutely. When you're dealing with sensitive financial data.
Yeah. You don't want to have like different branches doing things differently.
Right. You need that centralized control. And the centralized model also helps with things like vendor management.
Okay, so you're not having like 5 different departments negotiating with 5 different vendors.
Exactly. You have that central team that can negotiate better deals and ensure compatibility across the systems.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so the centralized model sounds pretty great for those initial stages.
It is. It's very effective for that initial push.
But what happens when that bank starts growing like crazy? They're opening up new branches left and right. They're expanding into new markets.
Right, and their automation ambitions are growing too.
Yeah, wouldn't that centralized model become a little bit of a bottleneck?
Potentially, yes. As companies scale and their automation initiatives mature, that centralized structure can start to feel a little rigid.
Right, because now you've got all these different branches with different needs.
Exactly, and different priorities.
And they all have to go through that one central COE.
Which can slow things down.
Right, so they need to evolve.
They need to adapt, yes.
Kind of like a Pokemon evolving.
I like that analogy.
So what's the next evolution?
So the next stage is often the federated model,
okay,
which is also known as the hub and spoke approach.
Okay, so like a bicycle wheel.
Exactly. You have that central COE, the hub, which sets the overall strategy.
Like the standards and best practices?
Exactly. And then you have smaller COEs in each business unit or department.
The spokes?
The spokes, yes.
Yeah.
And they handle the local implementation of automation initiatives.
So going back to our bank example.
Yes.
You might have a spoke for the mortgage department.
Right.
A spoke for the loan department.
Customer service.
Each with their own little mini COE.
Exactly. Tailoring automation to their specific needs.
So it's kind of like that central kitchen that creates the base recipes.
I like that.
But then each branch gets to add its own little local flavor to the menu.
Exactly. You have that balance of consistency and flexibility.
But that sounds like it could be really hard to coordinate.
It can be. It definitely requires strong communication between the hub and the spokes.
So how do you make sure that everyone's aligned and that you're not creating like a bunch of silos?
That's where things like Regular check-ins come in.
Okay.
Sharing best practices, having clear performance metrics that everyone's tracking.
So it's like a constant dance
It is, yeah.
between autonomy and alignment.
Exactly. You want to give the spokes the freedom to innovate.
But you also want to make sure that they're not going rogue.
Exactly, that they're still aligned with the overall business goals.
That makes sense.
And it brings us to our final model.
The decentralized model.
Yes, this is where things get really interesting.
So this is like those independent research labs within a university, right?
Exactly. Each unit has a high degree of autonomy.
They get to experiment.
They get to try new things.
So if we think about like a massive tech company
Yeah.
with different product divisions,
Each developing cutting-edge AI solutions.
this would make sense for them.
It would, because it allows for rapid experimentation and very tailored automation strategies.
So they can move really fast.
They can move fast, they can be agile.
But it's always a but.
There's always a bit, but there's got to be a downside here. The challenge with the decentralized model is, how do you prevent those units from becoming siloed?
Right.
How do you maintain alignment with the overall organizational goals?
So no more recipe sharing.
Not as much, no. It becomes more challenging.
Right. So it's a trade-off.
It is.
You get that incredible innovation,
You do.
but you risk losing that sense of cohesion.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to carefully consider the pros and cons of each model.
Right. So it's not like one model is better than the other.
Exactly. It depends on your specific needs.
Yeah. So dear listener, where does your organization fit into all of this?
Yeah, that's the question you need to be asking yourself.
Are you just starting out with automation?
Are you already at a more mature stage?
What are your specific goals?
And the article we mentioned earlier highlights some really crucial factors to consider when making this decision.
Yeah, so the first thing is you really need to assess your organization's automation maturity level.
Where are you on that journey?
Right. Are you just dipping your toes in the water, or are you already swimming laps?
Exactly. And then you need to think about your industry.
Right.
Are you in a highly regulated sector like healthcare or finance?
Where you need like really strict controls.
Exactly. And that might point you towards a more centralized or federated model.
Okay.
And finally, you need to consider your global reach.
Right.
If you have operations across continents, a federated approach with regional hubs might make more sense.
So it's all about finding that right fit.
It is.
There's no magic formula.
No one-size-fits-all solution.
It's about choosing the COE model that best fits your specific needs and goals.
Exactly.
And
And remember, it's not a static decision.
Right.
What works today might not work tomorrow.
So you might start with a centralized model.
Right.
And then as you grow and evolve,
You might transition to a federated model.
and then maybe even eventually to a decentralized model.
It's a journey,
Yeah. And that leaves us with a really interesting question.
which is,
How might the increasing use of AI impact these COE models?
oh, that's a big one.
Right? Will we see new hybrid structures emerge?
Will we see AI-powered COEs?
It's exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is. As automation technologies continue to evolve, so too will the structures that support them.
It's a brave new world out there.
It is.
Well, we hope this deep dive is giving you a better understanding of these different COE models.
Yeah, and the key considerations for choosing the right one for your organization.
Keep exploring,
Stay curious.
and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
See you then.
Bye.